What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Horror Reviews, and today we're going to be talking about what I consider to be a super underrated mystery thriller film from the 2000s. That is What Lies Beneath. So I consider What Lies Beneath to be a horror film. I can see how many people would watch this and say that it's a mystery thriller, but it definitely fits into the horror genre and verges on what people might consider to be like light horror. But What Lies Beneath stars Harrison Ford, Michelle Pfeiffer, and is directed by Robert Zemeckis of Back to the Future, Castaway, Forrest Gump fame, and is written by Clark Gregg from The Avengers and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I was really shocked to see that. I had no idea he had written this film. He wrote the screenplay for this. There's one other writer credited also, but it looks like this was his first screenplay, and also there's a story by credit. And so I was really surprised. I looked this up again before I started this video to see who wrote it, and I had no idea he had written this film. So that's kind of crazy. So getting right into the positives about What Lies Beneath, this movie feels very 2000s, and that could be considered a negative by some, I guess. Maybe that's part of why this film doesn't have as big of a following as I feel like it should, but it definitely feels late 90s, 2000s. It's like a nostalgia trip, sending you right back, especially the music, which I'll get into in just a second. But before that, What Lies Beneath is about a woman who's home and she sees these new neighbors that moved in next door to her and her husband, and her daughter goes off to college and she sees them fighting, and she's kind of suspicious that maybe the husband had done something to his wife. And I won't get into too many more details about the film because I think even the IMDb synopsis or the one on Paramount Plus where I watched this actually gave some spoilers, which this film definitely has like a twist at the end, and it can be a little bit predictable in certain aspects, but I don't think that's necessarily a negative to this film because of the way it plays out. That being said, I'm not going to give any more details about the film in case you haven't seen it. I'll get into spoilers in a little bit, but right now I won't talk about any spoilers. So as I said, this movie feels very 2000s. The music is just super like orchestral, sort of almost over the top at parts, like very nostalgic late 90s, 2000s feel to it, and it just sends you right back. I think the music in this film is excellent. It's just perfect for the vibe that Robert Zemeckis is going for. I think that Robert Zemeckis' directing in this film also is excellent. This movie is just a little bit over 2 hours long, and especially like the first half of this film, it really just like the scene, he lets the scenes just breathe and just lets you kind of like slowly get to know this house, which is a major player in the film, huge characters, the house and the area by the lake where they live. And it just lets you really get the layout of the film and just kind of like lets these scenes breathe, lets you get to know these characters and their, attributes and the way that they communicate together, and sort of just takes you through this backstory that's super important without explaining everything to you. He doesn't just shovel, like hand feed everything to you. He lays out little clues, and some of them might be like a little obviously still in your face with the way that they're laid out, but and actually it's a little bit confusing at first just because you're getting like information, but always it's kind of like shown to you and not explained thoroughly. And so you're allowed to kind of just unravel this mystery in your mind and get to know what's going on. He lets the scenes just like play out and breathe to create tension. And with the music and the house and the layout and what's going on with the neighbors, there's this very like uneasy tension that's built up in the early part of this film. There's just like this atmosphere with like the rain and like the door like opening in this house and her trying to get the lock to work and stuff that's not necessarily overtly, supernatural or like anything that makes you think like actually kind of makes sense. You watch a lot of films and door opens and you're kind of like, okay, you're just going to close it. But in this, you kind of like start to understand they're renovating this house. And so these creepy things just start to add up and creates this really, really cool atmosphere that, while not being overtly like a horror film or straight up scary, just has this nice, uneasy tension that's built up all the way to like the third act of the film. And I think that is like one of the best attributes of this film. If you've never seen it, it's not going to be like straight up horror. It definitely feels 2000s. It's got elements that don't hold up exactly well, but the tension that it builds and the directing, camera work really, really work well to build tension and absolutely hold up. Speaking of the camera work, I think that the way this film is shot is fantastic. Again, there are scenes that linger and just like push through the house and kind of show you the layout and follow characters and There's like, you know, those bathrooms that have two connecting doorways. And so you can kind of go in one and come out the other. And there's a lot of really cool camera work that's done there. With that, there's towards the end of the film especially, there's definitely some nods to Hitchcock and some like really interesting camera work that's thrown in there that I think works really well. Towards the very, very end of the film, there's some like older digital effects that I don't think work as well to try to pull off cool camera shots. But the beauty of this film being in the 2000s, that for me makes me forgive that a lot more, is because the digital effects are really used to tell the story and sort of create a tension or create a moment or create suspense and try to work with the camera rather than just be like crazy over the top, like just to do like an action scene or some sort of like car accident or some horror thing. It's all CGI. They just do like light digital effects and things like that to sort of build this shot that they're working with when they're on the bridge, and like this nice like swooping shot that they come where they like wrap over the bridge and come into the window of the truck. So there's this really cool shot. So again, it doesn't necessarily hold up. It looks dated, but it doesn't look terrible. And, you know, it's forgivable because it really is adding to the scene and what's going on. We've also got a fantastic performance from Harrison Ford. It's definitely a different type of performance for him, different type of character. And I think maybe people don't really like seeing Harrison Ford in this movie for some reason. And it's not like he's got like a ton of like dialogue to chew up or anything like that. But I think for his character and what he's trying to convey, he is fantastic. There's elements, again, that are unfolding in this film. And even if you might predict parts of it, there are points in the movie where the movie's telling you exactly what's happening, but you get Harrison Ford's character coming in and, you know, he has like a little bit of like a monologue where he might explain some things and you're like, thinking maybe, okay, all right, maybe there's something else going on. And I think that for his character, when he's supposed to do in this film, I think he does a great job. Michelle Pfeiffer also does a fantastic job. Does a great job at like showing this sort of emotional mom as her daughter goes away to college, and then sort of verging into this unstable woman that thinks that something's going on in her house and thinks that maybe she's suspicious of her neighbors or not sure exactly what's happening. And then later getting into a scene where she totally flips and does like a 180 and plays like a different type of character. And I think she pulled that off excellent as well. And then she really did a great job at conveying that sort of, you know, the mental like reality cracking while still conveying like a strong character and letting this story just unfold around her. So I think great performance from Michelle Pfeiffer as well. The other thing I really like about this film is just simply the story. I think it's a really unique story. And while, again, it might have elements of predictability and sort of some pieces that when you step back, you might think, okay, that doesn't totally make sense. I'm on board for the ride the whole way through. It never makes me stop and think, oh, hold on, I don't really know about that while I'm watching the film. And like I said, it just gives you pieces here and there. It doesn't, even though some films, like I complain on this channel even, could be very predictable. As I've mentioned before, if you can earn the twist or earn the ending, it's an entirely different meaning. So this film, even if you predict what might happen, it gives you pieces that you're supposed to be putting together the entire time anyway. And so there's actually like a point towards the end of this movie, as I kind of stated, where something happens and it's laid out for you. You're supposed to know what's going on basically at this point, but there's not really like a reveal where it's like, oh, that's the twist. There's a moment where there's like a kind of like another sort of ultimate reveal, but again, it's more just like layers built up upon each other that are giving you pieces of the story until we finally get to that like climactic ending. It's not like this big try to hide everything and then just unveil this big and twist ending. And that's what really works about this film, because even if there are, again, elements you might think are coming, it really just lays them out for you nice and slow and lets you just sort of enjoy this ride as the main character is piecing things together, and you are as well. So I think, again, that just really works for this story. And I think that the story that's written here is a very like classic story that is believable, that could possibly happen, but has this nice sort of like horror element on top of it. There are, again, some moments, which I'll get to in a minute, where you might step back and kind of question them, but it doesn't ever take me out of the film when certain elements of like a haunting are there, and then certain like reality elements are there. I think that they really fit together really well in the story. So before I get into spoiler talk, the only real negatives I have about this film that aren't spoilers, or I don't want to dive more into quite yet, are just that it does look a little dated in certain parts of the film, and it feels very 2000s and 90s. So if you maybe didn't grow up watching those films and you're used to modern films, or more like modern, not that this is not a modern film, but like the pace and sort of the style of more modern films, this one can feel a little dated. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I personally think that's a positive thing, but I could see that being a negative for some people. Again, there are elements of the story that do, after you watch it, especially now going back and revisit, you might think, okay, like I'm not really sure about certain parts of it. But again, for the most part, I don't have a whole ton of negatives about this film. Honestly, I really like this film. The ending doesn't hit quite as well years later when you watch this film, but it stuck with me so much. I saw it maybe, I don't know, I want to say I haven't seen it in maybe 15, 16 years probably. And I still remember the ending. I remember the atmosphere. It really stuck with me all these years. And so I remembered it in pretty decent amount of detail. Now, I don't think it necessarily holds up as well as in terms of as impactful, like a movie that you're going to watch and be like, oh crap, that's right. That was a crazy ending. But as I kind of mentioned, it's more of like a built up ending rather than like an unveiling. And so I think, again, for that, it really works well. So that's it really for my negatives. Honestly, I really enjoyed this movie. I don't really understand why it's not more loved, but I'm going to get into some spoiler talk right now. If you, for some reason, haven't seen this, came out, oh my gosh, 24 years ago. 24 years ago, this film came out. And if you, for some reason, have not seen it, I recommend you go see it. It's streaming on Paramount Plus right now. I don't know if it's streaming somewhere else, but go check it out. It's 2 hours long, but it's like a really, really nice watch. It doesn't feel like it drags at all. Maybe like towards the end, just a little bit, but for the most part, it's just a very solid watch. So if you have not seen this, I highly recommend it. Just go give it a chance. Remember, it's 2000s film. It's going to feel like that. And let me know what you think. Come back and let me know what you think. Now, let me get into some spoilers real quick. There's not a whole lot more I want to say, but just talking about some specific details, some negatives that I didn't really enjoy about the film as much. Upon rewatching it, the supernatural elements of this film do kind of make me think, like, I knew at the time, I was like, yeah, okay, the ghost is helping her. I get it, that's cool. But like upon rewatching it, you're kind of like, wait, so why all of a sudden did the ghost decide to start helping her now? And like, how come when she had her hair in her hand, she was like able to take over her body, but then she like was still able to, like, she lost the connection because they burned the hair, and then she kind of still was able to like haunt her. I don't know. They're like, the supernatural elements are very like uneven. I don't exactly understand like why she started haunting her and what exactly was going on with that whole thing, and why nothing had happened before, or why she couldn't exactly remember that he had had an affair. I know she got into an accident, but like that's all a little bit confusing, I feel like, in the film. And again, like I talked about, some of the effects are a little dated, but I easily give this film a pass because the camera work is so strong, because the storytelling is so strong, the atmosphere is so strong, and the acting is so strong in this film. I definitely give it a pass for that. But there are definitely, like I said, some story elements that you're kind of thinking, I don't feel like this was as clear as it could have been. And like the relationship with Harrison Ford's dad, just some of like that story element, the unfolding of that is a little bit confusing. And I feel like it just doesn't exactly play out how it should until you get to the end. You understand he killed the woman, but it's like, I don't know. It's a little confusing how she like remembers something all of a sudden. And then we get this like story unfolding. So that part I think is a little weak, doesn't hold up super duper well. Also on that note, when she kind of like gets possessed or taken over by the dead woman's spirit, and she's like seducing Harrison Ford's character, great scene. But like, I just can't help but think this time around, like, well, why would she not just kill him? Like she like gets on top of him, like she's gonna kill him, but she's kind of like in and out of being Michelle Pfeiffer's character and like the dead woman's character, I guess. So I don't know. I just kind of that moment, I was like, this is her, the spirit. So why would she not just be like pissed at him and then like kill him, or like write a note from Michelle Pfeiffer's character, be like, kill him. He cheated on you. I don't know. You know, it just was like a moment kind of like, wait, if it's her, why is she deciding to do this? It makes for a cool moment. Definitely some trailer fuel. That line, even remembering the trailer now when I watched that, when she's like, I think she's suspicious. And Harrison Ford's character goes, who? And she's like, your wife. Definitely from the trailer. Cool moment. It just kind of doesn't really work entirely when you think about it. But honestly, that's pretty much it. I really enjoy this film. It holds up pretty well. I love this film when I was younger, and I guess I still remember the atmosphere. Kind of reminds me of the others a little bit in that way. Not that they're similar movies, but just that the others didn't hold up as well to me personally, like with like the twist when I rewatched it years ago. But the atmosphere and like the tone of the film really holds up still. And so like it has this just nice, like uneasy atmosphere throughout the whole film. And so rewatching it, it just like super suspenseful, still engaged me, even though I remembered a lot of the stuff that happened. I was still super engaged in what was going on. My wife enjoyed it. And so, you know, it's a solid film. I don't really understand why this movie is not popular. It's a 6.6 on IMDb. And I feel like this is like a topic almost for a different video, but I definitely feel like older films like 90s, 2000s that have like a 6 out of 10 on IMDb are like modern day 7s and 8s. There's like something about these older films. I swear this is like, if it's not even just like up for like a debate really so much. If you look at a film that you think is pretty good from the 2000s, I swear it's going to almost always have a lower IMDb score and a lower Rotten Tomatoes score, because I think we were just like harsher on films then. We had higher standards. I think that's really it. I swear this is just kind of like a soapbox thing, like a video for another time, but it's just like they had higher standards or something. So you can look at a lot of modern films and they're like a 7 or an 8. And I'm like, that is not that great of a film. And you look at like a pretty solid, like, you know, Sixth Sense film or something like that, and it's like got a way lower IMDb score than you would think it would. And I think it's just maybe over time it's got so many more reviews that it brings it down, but I don't understand why it has a 6.6. This is a solid film, solid mystery suspense thriller, like light horror film, and cool bathtub, cool bathroom scenes, you know, just cool house. I didn't really talk about that a lot, but like the window pane style, like really just a character in this film. All right, that's enough talking. Super solid film. If you watched all the way to the end and you haven't seen What Lies Beneath, go check it out. It's a solid 2000s film. I don't think you'll be disappointed, but if you've seen it or if you saw it a long time ago, let me know what you think below. Rewatch it. Let me know what you guys think about this film. Why is it not more appreciated? And if you don't think it's a like good film and I'm totally off on this review, let me know what you think below. I'm curious what people think is so terrible about this film. But that's it. Thanks for watching.
I'm scared, I'm a big bad wolf. I never see the silver lining, only see the gold. I don't speak in caps, dog, everything bold. And I put that on myself cause it's a life that I done chose. I said come through, you can see me on the west side. Now it's funny how they walking